Okay, in this lesson, we're going to look at more direct variation, and we're going to work on word problems and solving for our different variables, x and y. So please set up your notebook. Your essential question is, how do you identify x and y from a direct variation word problem? Because that's one of the things that can be most difficult. So stop the video if you need to, and please take the time to set that up. Now, one thing I want to stress before we get started, we did say in previous notes, we talked about that we said y always varies directly with x. Similar to when we talk about dependent statements, y is always a function of x. So when we have different variables in our equations, it's always helpful to kind of remember that and help do that. And that'll make sense in just a minute. So our first example says, given the point, write a direct variation equation. So that's the first thing we're going to do. We already talked about that we know direct variation has that unique relationship of our constant of variation being y over x. So all we need is 1 point. So I can simply say that for my constant of variation, it's 9 over 3 or 3. So my equation is y equals 3x. Simple as that. Now it says determine y when x equals 15. So wherever we see an x, we're going to simply plug in 15 for x and calculate it. So we get y equals 3 times 15 is 45. Super easy. Okay, in the next one, our point is negative 18, negative 4. Now, I want to tell you too, if you forget that our constant of variation is y over x, you can also take your point and plug it into our direct variation equation to solve for k. So, for example, we know y is negative 4. We know x is negative 18. And so to solve for k, we would just divide by negative 18. And so our constant of variation here, let's simplify it, would be 2/9. And so our equation is y equals 2/9 x. This time, it's asking us to determine x when y is 36. So I'm going to take 36, plug it in for y, and our equation looks like this. We've been focusing a lot on how to cancel out these fraction coefficients. You can do it in 2 steps or you can do it in 1 step. When I see a fraction coefficient, I immediately think multiply by the reciprocal. And I want to encourage you, some of you are forgetting about fractions. Remember that you can do some reducing to make this easier. And so x would equal 162. Okay. Remember, at any point, if I'm going too fast, pause your video and make sure you have everything written down. Okay, so let's look at some word problems now. One thing we want to make sure is that we understand what the given information is. Where it says at one company, the amount of vacation V an employee earns varies directly with the amount of time he or she works. So from that statement, I want to make sure I know what x and y is. And remember, I told you at the beginning of the notes, y varies directly with x. So when I read this statement and it says the amount of vacation V, y, varies directly with the amount of time t, that's my x and y. That's really important. That really helps me when I've got different variables. So it says an employee who works, I have 2 weeks. So let's go look back. Weeks is my x, earns 3 hours of vacation. And so that is my y. Really, really helpful to label what we're talking about. Yes, we need to write our equation using V and T, but when I think about the given information, I need to make sure I know what goes where. So we need to write an equation. We're simply going to put y over x. My y, let's see, is V in this case, and T, so labeling it like that will help you too. So I'm going to say V equals 3 over 2 T. You could write it with y and x, but you need to be able to recognize what it looks like with different variables because you'll see that. So now it says, how many hours of vacation time does an employee earn in 8 weeks? So we know weeks was our T value, or our X. So I'm going to plug in 8 for T and solve this. So this would be 24 over 2, which is 12. So an employee earns 12 hours of vacation time. Okay, look at the next one. I want you to stop the video. I want you to read it to yourself. Stop the video and see if you can identify your X and Y in this problem, and then restart it. It says landscapers plan to spread a layer of stone on a path. The number S of bags needed depends on, so that's the same thing as saying varies directly with, the depth D. So again, Y depends on X. They need 10 bags, Y, to spread a layer of stone that is 2 inches deep, X. Write an equation. So the point that they gave us was 2, 10. We know the depth is D, and the number of bags is S. So let's write an equation. Our constant of variation is 10 over 2, or 5. So our equation would be S equals 5D. Now it says find the number of bags, S, needed to spread a layer that is 3 inches deep. So all we have to do is plug in 3 for D and solve. S equals 15. So we're going to need 15 bags of stone.